Ladies and gentlemen, it came and went, and Squid Game 3 has officially finished, which is crazy. I think it's a little bit interesting when they do all of the episodes of Squid Game at once, or any show. I really think it's really a special thing when a show does each episode by episode, but whatever, that's neither here nor there. You came here for the thoughts about Squid Game. And I have a lot of them. I genuinely do. Because I do think this was pretty good. I don't think there was anything bad about Squid Game Season 3. I don't think there was anything particularly incredible about it either. But I do think the overall package that was Squid Game, that is now completely concluded from at least the South Korean version, was really solid. And I honestly applaud them for making a very creative, very fun show to watch that was also visually appealing, had all of the entertainment value out there and everything. I think this show checks off a lot of boxes. And before I even dive into my thoughts about it, I guess I have to say that, and I wrote a lot of notes, so maybe my note has this one the best, better than even I would. Essentially, one of the biggest points that I'm trying to get at is I'm a big fan of when shows feel realistic. That's a big thing for me. Like when you put real people in outlandish scenarios, I think that's a very good thing. I think it's a very important thing to have in a show. But maybe it's the language barrier for me. Maybe it's the fact that this is a show based in South Korea and there's, a whole other language, a whole other way of life than what I'm used to here in America that kind of detaches me from what I'm watching to make it a little bit more digestible in how outlandish it can be in times. Does that make any sense? I'm not too sure if it does, to be completely honest. The point I'm essentially getting at is, if I was watching an American show, right, like Walking Dead, a show I talk about all the time on this channel, if I'm watching The Walking Dead, I'm watching people that I know because they're people that I would see in my town interacting in an outlandish scenario, and I know how Americans talk, I know how Americans act. But I don't really know how South Koreans act. I'm not from there. I live a very, very, very far plane ride from there. I'm not used to their daily interactions. So watching a show based in South Korea with obviously subtitles and with, a transcription or whatever you say where it's dubbed in English, a dub in English, it feels different, and it, I guess, in a sense, makes it easier for me to kind of ignore some of the crazy elements of the show. Now, I know the ending to Season 3 was a lot about setting up the American Squid Games, clearly, like that was a big focus of the ending of the show, but I don't know how this is going to translate to an American show. I don't know if it's going to help. I don't know if they'll change it a little bit, or they'll keep that same formula, but in America. Is anyone understanding what I mean by that? The reason I bring that up is I feel like this show heavily relies on a suspension of disbelief, which is totally fine. Totally fine. Actually, as a matter of fact, I think that was one of the strongest points of the show. But I just don't know how that's going to translate in a sort of way that works for American culture. Does that make any sense? I'm trying to find a way to word that. It's up here, but it's not coming out right. You know what I mean? Yeah, I don't know. That's I guess one of my biggest concerns and thoughts about the end. And honestly, that's a really good thing for Squid Game 3. That's a very, very good thing because, frankly, I thought it worked in its form that we got on screen. I thought it was really good, and I liked a lot of what they did. There was a couple questionable moments. There was a couple of things that felt contrived. I didn't like the CGI baby, because that baby was clearly all CGI. Like, clearly. I didn't like that they brought a baby into the mix just to kind of give the show stakes, when I felt like the show had enough stakes, especially with 456 and all of that stuff. And mind you, I'm just going to be honest, before you get into it and be like, hey, you don't know any of the names, I don't know all of the names. I genuinely don't. I know the numbers, but I don't know all of these characters' names. I know the frontman, I know 456, I know 222, I know the mom and the son. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know all of the names, but I guess I'm going to get some of the worst parts of it out of the way and then just get into everything I liked, because Yeah, the list of things I don't like is a lot smaller than the things that I do. So, a couple things I noted just watching this season is the old lady delivering the baby. Magically, when she's done delivering the baby, her hands are just completely clean. I know it's a small detail, but it was one of those where I was like, that makes no sense whatsoever. You would think that after you deliver a baby out of a vagina that, it would be dirty. Like, have you ever watched The Miracle of Birth? I have. I had to see that. You know, you know what I mean? Like, that was a big shock to me. I know it's TV, whatever. Just very small detail. I already mentioned the CGI baby. The CGI baby wasn't the end of the world, but it was definitely noticeable in times. Like when the lighting was a little off, you could tell that the CGI baby's hue was like a little too blue or something like that. And obviously that's not a fault of the story, but it was just one of those things I was like, huh? What's that? Is that a baby? Like, you know what I mean? I don't know. That was one of those small little details. Like, this is what I'm saying. A lot of the little details I had a problem with are small. There's, I guess, kind of a big thing, but maybe I'll save that for another video, but I'll talk about it here. Obviously, another thing is kind of the overarching plot hole of the show. There's all of these characters. There's 456 people competing in these Squid Games every single year. You'd think that one of them would tell their family about it and maybe be like, hey, I'm going to this competition to try to win money. Like, I'll see you in a couple days. I'll see you in a week. If I don't, let me, be concerned or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, someone along these games of Squid would have definitely told their family or a loved one or a friend and been like, I'm doing this. Like, and they were probably like, no, like, why are you going to this thing? You don't even know what it is. They were probably concerned. And then when they obviously never showed up because they were killed in the Squid Games, like, you'd think they would start an investigation, but they made it a point of throughout all of these 3 seasons to basically say, no one's ever reported something like this. This has never been heard of. That's crazy. But 456 people a year go missing to this. And it's like kind of public. Like everyone has CCTV. You know what I mean? Everyone has family members. Everyone has something. I mean, maybe not everyone. Maybe there's, homeless that are involved like we saw at the end of the season and things like that. But you understand what I mean? That was one of those things that just kind of threw me off. I don't know, but that's not really a problem with this season. That's just a problem with the overarching story. Another problem with the season for me, and this is more of a finale based thing, excuse me, is the fact that this finale didn't really give us anything at all in the form of trying to understand these Squid Games, how they were started, how they continue to go, who was kind of like, yes, obviously we know the front man, but who was like overseeing this structure. This is a very, very structural thing where they have literally bombs everywhere, where they have trackers on every boat, where they know what's going on, where they fly people in from across the country. Like, how has this all came to be? Because that is one of those things. Every episode I'm like, when are they going to tell us like how this happened, how this starts, all of that stuff, but they never ever touched on that. And I thought that was very disappointing. Yeah, we got a little bit of the one girl who saved the one player, 246, I think was the player or whatever. She goes in, she sees all the files and all of that stuff, but like, there wasn't really much else, you know what I mean? It was one of those things that just kind of bothered me that they never addressed, and I have a feeling Squid Games is clearly expanding this universe, right? They're making an American version. I've heard the writers and the people at Netflix say they want to make other spin-offs, and there's things going on. I feel like they could easily explain how the Squid Games even started in a spin-off like that, but it's unfortunate that your canon, your main thing, never really addressed that. I'm not a fan of that. I'd like a little bit of lore, but I also agree with the fact that you don't need to know everything, and some things can be left up to interpretation. So I'm not exactly counting that as like a bad, but it definitely was disappointing by the time we got to the episode, the series finale, episode, 6 of season 3, and none of that was answered. That was a little bit annoying. And I guess, I don't know why, and I haven't figured this out, and that's why I think I want to save it for another video, but player 456, Obviously, we followed his journey. Obviously, this is the end of Squid Game, the original series. This is the end of it. So, I mean, it's kind of expected that your main character, when it's the end games, they're probably not gonna last. I don't know why. I don't know if it's the fact that the baby kind of made the show a little bit more contrived, or it was just something else, but it disappointed me the way that Player 456 died, but I also really liked it. Does that make any sense? Like, I'm somewhere in the middle where I think it's a little bit too, I guess contrived is really the right word that I'm going for. I felt like it was just very like, oh, let's throw a baby in here so there's more stakes. But there was already enough stakes. 456 came back to the games to stop the games. But we threw a baby in the mix to try to like raise the ante even more when I don't think that was necessary. Now, in the end of the day, after 456, sacrifices himself and dies, we do see that at least the South Korean Squid Game ends. And that's great. That's really good. That means that gave 456's story and character arc impact, and that's very important. Genuinely is. But I can't put it into words as to why it bothered me. Maybe I was just tired when I watched it and I was like, I don't really get it. It's possible. I do, now that the series is done, I want to go back and watch it from start to finish again. And maybe I will before I do a more in-depth video. But these are just my thoughts today of like dumping this out and talking about it. So those were, I guess, the negatives. The positives overall are still that this story is, I think it's incredible. It's an incredible idea. I genuinely do. Like, from start to finish, seasons 1 to season 3. Oh, wait, before I even get to that, one thing else that I thought was bad was, why the fuck would they call this a season 3? This was not a season 3. This was season 2.5. And it really showed because we had a few months off of the show. So when season 2 ended, it ended on a big cliffhanger. But when we came back to it, if you didn't watch season 2 again or like rewatch it, a lot of the plot points, I was left like, wait, oh, that happened. Oh, great. Okay, so this is this. And then there were things in there where I'm like, oh, I totally forgot about this. Like the whole thing in the beginning where 456 was chasing down the one guy who was cowardly and didn't end up like bringing the ammo to him in the gunfight. I know that was a big part of the finale of season 2, but like it was so long that I kind of forgot about that. So when it happened, I was like, why is Sung-ho chasing him? Like, what's the point of this? Where are we getting at with that? You know what I mean? It was one of those things, like, they filmed this simultaneously with season 2. So the idea of them calling this a season 3, I don't think feels right, because they filmed this as one long season, and it doesn't feel like this was a season 3. This felt like a season 2. I think that was a contractual thing. I think they had to do that for reasons, but I don't know. I could be wrong about that. But okay, that's the end of my cons. But I hope you saw in my cons that a lot of the things I talk about are also bringing positivity to the show, too. Like, yes, there are cons in everything. But also, like, I think the show is really strong. And I think it's worth talking about the cons because, like, I had a really good interaction with this show. But anyway, the pros. Like I said, the overall story from seasons 1 to season 3 of the show, it was just really solid. The concept is really good. Yes, there are plot holes that I mentioned in the cons, for sure. Like, that definitely exists. But it still is a very good show. The concept is great. I'm excited to see where it goes in the American spinoff overall. And I just thought it was fun. Everything worked. The cinematography was good. The color grading in the show. The creative set pieces. Obviously, I watched it on an English dub most of the time because I'm not a big fan of reading what I'm watching. So I don't like to listen in South Korean or in Korean in general and then read the subtitles because I'm focused on the subtitles and not on the visuals. So I did watch the dub, and the dub is obviously not good because like I said in the beginning, when you're watching a show that's based in South Korea and America, obviously South Koreans are going to have very different inflection points in their conversation. They're going to be culturally very different. So things that I think are cheesy are definitely not cheesy to South Koreans, and things that South Koreans think are cheesy about Americans are definitely not cheesy to South Koreans. You know what I mean? Like, so watching it on an English dub, when you see the emotion is so there in a scene, like, I don't know an example. I guess towards the end when 456 and the guy 222's baby daddy were fighting, and he's screaming, the baby daddy is screaming, talking about like, Like how you don't need this, he wants his money, blah, blah, blah. You could tell the actors are fucking incredible. You could tell that. But the dub just makes it a little laughable, if that makes any sense. And not that, again, that is not a problem of the script. It's not a problem of the actors. It's the unfortunate truth about dubbing a show into English. You know what I mean? Like, if I understood Korean and I watched this in Korean, I'm sure this was probably an incredible, incredible moment of drama. Like, and one that I would probably have a lot different opinions on. But because it's an American, it's slightly different. But I don't even know how I got on this tangent. I'm very tired, to be honest with you, because I know I went to the pros. But whatever, I guess the point I was trying to get at is, even with the dub being goofy, the premise is still really fucking good. It's really good, and it's really worth it. And I think, for the most part, they wrapped it up really well. I think, yeah, 456 in some way had to sacrifice himself. We kind of knew that was coming. And I can't even argue about the fact that we lost all of those people, because we know the concept of Squid Games. Everyone dies except for one of them. So we knew we were watching ghosts from the first episode, so I can't even comment on that. But I like what they did with the stories this season, and I like how it all felt very natural for the show, and none of it felt, I guess, forced. It didn't feel like, obviously, the popularity was huge, so obviously they wanted to renew the show for a season 2, like Netflix and all of that. But when you're watching this show, I didn't get the sense that I was watching some corporate executives be like, you need to make season 2 and season 3. It felt like the creator of Squid Games had an idea and knew what he wanted to tell. And I think that was really good. And I think overall, I think they did a good job. I don't know what else I would have wanted from this other than more information about how the Squid Game started, and maybe a little bit more with the front man, like a little bit more backstory, a little bit more intrigue into him. I think maybe they're saving that for a spinoff. I don't know. But either way, I think where they left all of the arcs was really good, albeit the baby thing was a little contrived. So, yeah. I know I said I'd have a lot more pros, but I think my pros, even though there's like 2 of them, I think those 2 pros significantly outweigh any cons. The concept is great. Cinematography is great. The storytelling is great. All of that just outshines the little cons they have. And I think overall this package was really good, really complete. Will I watch the American version? 100%, but I am skeptical about it, for sure. I'm worried that they're not going to know how to properly adapt this to screen, but time will tell. Yeah. I think all of that is, that's all my thoughts right now. I'm exhausted. I watched this episode literally at 6 in the morning because I'm used to waking up at 6. It's Saturday. My body just naturally woke up at 6 and I was like, I have one more episode to go. Might as well just watch it now and get this video done. So that's why I'm here talking about it right now, but had to brain dump. Would love to know your thoughts down in the comments below. By the way, I have an Instagram. I post there every day, and I have a Discord, so be sure to join me in those places. And with all that out of the way, thank you again so much for watching this video, and until the next one, I'll talk to you later. Peace out.